Well, greetings everyone. I'm Troy Dreyer. I'm the Senior Associate Editor for StreamingMedia.com and OnlineVideo.net. I'm glad to see we have a good audience today. We have a shorter session today, 45 minutes, and we have a lot to cover. And I'm very happy with the panelists we have here. We're talking about establishing a common platform for electronic sell-through. I always dislike jargon, so we're going to explain our terms first. But before we do that, let me just have the panelists introduce themselves briefly and tell us what they do. Andrew, you want to start?
Hi, good morning. I'm Andrew Glasspool. I'm from Farncombe. We are a consultancy specialising in video delivery, and I guess in this context, well, from business planning through to implementation. In this context, we're most often helping people with whether to do electronic sell-through, whether that should be part of ultraviolet, and then if they are going to do that, how they're going to do it.
My name is Susanne Gut from Cast Labs. We are specialists in mobile video delivery or premium video delivery. We offer DRM as a service, so as a cloud-based service, so that you don't have to worry about installing the systems yourselves anymore, and pay all the, all the setup stuff from the DRM systems. We do that for you, and you just use it as a service. And we are one of the first companies that offer end-to-end ultraviolet technology.
I'm Matthew Huntington from NAGRA. We're a digital television solution provider for the major service providers, cable and satellite operators. We're mainly known for providing content protection and security solutions, which includes our own DRM, which is indeed a approved DRM for ultraviolet for streamed media.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. So I don't want anyone sitting through this and not understanding some of the basic terms, and I find the term electronic sell-through kind of clunky. Is that just, are we just talking about selling premium content online?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Can you repeat it?
The term electronic sell-through, are we just talking about selling premium video content online? Is there more to it than that? What the term electronic sell-through refers to?
Well, I think so. It encompasses everything from the ability to watch stream video, well, primarily to own the content that you have purchased, whether you own the right to stream it or you own the content and can watch it on multiple devices so you can download it and watch it on multiple devices. And if you want to get complicated about it, you might be able to sideload it from one device to another.
So you're saying that the basic term electronic sell-through implies all these usage rights?
Yeah.
Okay, could you slide the microphone a little closer?
Yes, I think I would see it in the same way as Andrew does it.
No, Andrew, if you could just slide your microphone a little up.
Okay.
Towards you.
But I think in certain areas, for example in ultraviolets especially, EST or electronic sell-through stands for the digital copy that you download to own versus the stream or the rental model. So I don't think that the term is really properly defined, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Something a little vague.
Yeah.
Sort of like the next term I want to talk about, TV everywhere. I just had a conversation with Matthew. You were telling me that my U.S. interpretation of TV everywhere is very different from what it means in practice in Europe.
Yeah, so in Europe, when we talk about TV everywhere, generally what we're talking about is satellite and cable operators enabling the majority of their bouquet of channels to be accessed on a wide variety of devices, tablets, phones, etc. Whereas in the US, it has a kind of slightly different meaning where the cable operators in particular are trying to control people's access to over-the-top services, so effectively restricting access to over-the-top services to only people who have a valid cable subscription. So if you wanted to watch NBC, if I'm correct, if you want to watch NBC's Olympic coverage on your iPad, you had to be a cable or satellite subscriber to do that. And if you had cut the cord, then you wouldn't have been able to watch that service. So that's really sort of TV everywhere is really referring to an authentication mechanism to authenticate that you've got access to it. So a very different vibe to that meaning between Europe and the US.
And authentication has proved especially unpopular in Europe?
Well, it's not that it's unpopular. It's just that people haven't, applied that model. I mean, there's no services that are being restricted based on your access restricted based on what subscriptions you have to a pay TV service. They've remained separated in Europe.
So the purpose of this session is looking at establishing a common platform for electronic sell-through. Why is a common platform necessary? We certainly don't have one now.
Well, if I may jump in here, I
Please.
think it's absolutely valuable for the customer, because the customer wants to access the content from everywhere, every device at any time, shared with other people, just as they've been used to before, where we were using other media like kind of Blu-ray also. So I think it's essential to make money out of it, because only with a common platform you address customers' needs.
So what we have now is highly fragmented. Is a common platform really possible, considering all the major players involved?
So there is one common platform, and that's Apple, and that's a definite common platform, and that illustrates, I think, very well why it's hard for anyone else to do electronic sell-through, because they're able to control every aspect of that platform, from branding to the user interface, the user experience, and the security. So, one of the issues when we say a common platform, if we look at something like the Apple platform, there is just one DRM. There's only iOS 4, 5, and 6 now, but it's controlled, it's fully managed, every device is controlled. They know how many different shapes the video comes in, and when we talk about a common platform across multiple vendors and multiple devices, I don't think we've yet addressed that issue. So the common platform that we talk about in the context of ultraviolet is actually a common platform at a high level, but when you look underneath the water, the duck is paddling really hard and the legs are going really hard, and the platform isn't common at all yet. And if it isn't common, you won't meet the objectives that Susanne's set out, which is the ability to transfer content from any device from one device to another device.
I mean, so far of the platforms operating, the iTunes model has been the most successful, right? But it's vertical, but it is a deeply walled garden. I mean, they're not opening it up to anyone else.
No.
So is this a model that others can follow? Could you ever see it being opened up?
I don't know, I can't speak for them.
It's classically vertical, and I think the interesting thing is to look across the market today and say, where else do you find vertical operators? And that's amongst the current pay TV operators. Those are vertical platforms, and they're managed platforms. And one of the things that we need to look at when trying to implement electronic sell-through is how best do you do that on today's existing platforms, as well as on the new emerging horizontal market platforms.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like we've had a few responses from outside Apple of trying to get something big in place. One that comes to mind is ultraviolet, that would work across devices, that would create something as flexible. Who'd like to tell us? Suzanne, do you have some slides that you wanted to talk about?
Well, yes, I brought some slides because I've made the experience that when we talk about ultraviolet, not everyone actually knows ultraviolet. So I wanted to take the chance to give a short introduction of what it is, and also, what it technically means, which technical roles the different technology providers play. I don't have the
I think that would be useful. I mean, it's something we've been hearing about for a while, but I think there's still some confusion about what ultraviolet is and how it's put in practice.
Okay, so maybe some of you have already seen this. It's the official ultraviolet kind of picture of the ecosystem and how it works. Basically, ultraviolet enables you to put your or that you purchase when you purchase a movie, you put that into a central locker. And the beauty about it is that your right stays there, and you can access your right from different devices. So basically on the very left it says kind of content from the cloud. Whenever you purchase a movie, be it at Amazon or be it at, I don't know, Flixster, Filmflex, Blinkbox, somewhere with Ultraviolet, your rights always ends up in the Ultraviolet locker, which is a centralized kind of retailer independent locker. And from there you can access your movies from every device that is implementing the Ultraviolet device. So it can be your mobile phone, it can be your tablet, can be your PC, can be your smart TV, very likely. So everyone who is supporting this Ultraviolet standard actually allows you to watch your movie. Some of the retailers also offer you, whenever you purchase your digital copy, you get a disc with it, but this is a thing that the retailer can decide. What else? Yeah, of course. And then you have usage rights, which try to accomplish or try to, allow you the usage of your content that you've been used before. You can put your content onto 12 devices, and you can share your Ultraviolet account with 6 people in the family, so that your children, your, I don't know, parents, whatever, can also use the content that you've purchased. And basically you have the possibility to download or stream the content at the time that you want to consume it. Probably you want to download it because you want to watch it in a train or so. And maybe one more thing which is interesting for our discussion here is that there are 5 approved DRMs for the content download. There are more DRMs allowed for the streaming, as you said, for Nagra, so you can also use the Nagra DRM for streaming. But for the download use case, you only have 5 approved DRMs. If you are a retailer, which is quite a burden because Ultraviolet says that you need to support all these 5 DRMs in order to be an Ultraviolet retailer. I don't know how much experience you guys have with operating DRM in a company, but already operating 1 or 2 DRMs is quite a, it's quite a challenge and quite a cost position. So operating 5 DRMs was kind of, a challenge to the retailers. And something had to be found there, which I'm going to address later. So this is kind of the user experience that you have when you participate at Ultraviolet. Any questions on this, maybe, in between? Yeah, please.
Do you actually own or do you rent?
No, so you own the content. Whenever you buy something with Ultraviolet, you own the content.
Well, you have a perpetual license to the content. You have a perpetual license to the content. You don't perpetual. You have a non expiring license to the content. You don't own it. Just be careful with our legal terminology there.
Okay. So yeah, I wasn't aware of this term. Yeah, but basically you don't rent it and it expires after 2 weeks or 2 days or so. This right that, well, I said you own, but actually it's probably a perpetual license. It stays in your rights locker, and from there you can always access it. It stays there after your purchase for a long time.
So it's non-transferable?
Non-transferable?
Is it transferable? That's the question. Because we know that with iTunes that your rights are not transferable, and if you die, you know all those rights are then lost. You can't pass them down to your children.
So I don't know, and please also be aware, I'm not Ultraviolet, I'm not DCE, I'm just trying to get everyone on the same knowledge level today for this discussion. So whenever I don't know an answer, I don't say anything because I might be saying something wrong.
So there's one little interesting twist though. You're allowed the content on 12 devices, but you're only guaranteed three free downloads of that content. Now, a retailer may offer you more, but getting your 12 devices with all the content is not necessarily going to happen with 3 downloads.
Sorry, not quite clear yet. So it's not clear in this week. I'm not sure how the punters out there can see it. So from a private perspective, do you have a strategy for getting a clear message across to the consumer what it means to the perpetual license to rent?
So I would really like to refer to the official ultraviolet statements that you can probably find in the internet or so. So it's I don't want to say anything wrong, but basically it's focused on download to own contents or electronic sell-through content, which in our case or in ultraviolet case means you buy the movie and then you get a perpetual license for it.
The other thing is that no matter who you buy it from, so I'm not ultraviolet either, but a clear point that they have made is that you always have the same commercial terms. So no matter who you buy it from, it's 12 devices, 6 people, 3 parallel streams, and that is a feature of ultraviolet. It's interesting if you're running a rights locker as an operator with your own content, non-ultraviolet content, you may have completely different rights, and you will then have to explain to the customer why one piece of programming you're allowed to watch 2 times on 6 devices and another one is 3 times on 12 devices. So that's a little challenge that people will have implementing electronic sell-through where they include ultraviolet content and maybe Disney key chest content, which may have different terms.
Matthew, do you want to add anything?
Say again?
Matthew, did you
No,
want to add anything?
I actually wanted to just go back to this terminology thing because we talk about download to own and electronic sell-through, and I think it's worth just explaining why we've moved from this old term of download to own to electronic sell-through. So download to own goes back to the model when you were buying electronic forms of content, you downloaded them onto a PC once. You could do it once and then you completed and you're done, and then maybe there was a way to sideload that onto other devices. And that's really was established as the original iTunes model. Why we moved to this terminology electronic sell-through is these days it's more likely that when you buy content, that content sort of exists in the cloud somewhere. You have some rights to that, which the term now is a rights locker, and then you can access it multiple times under different regimes, and the ultraviolet tries to define exactly what those regimes are. And so, if you like, the move from iTunes to iCloud is an example of moving to this more of an electronic sell-through rather than a pure download to own model.
I've always been kind of skeptical about ultraviolet since I first heard about it, and this slide saying 12 devices, 6 people, 3 parallel streams isn't helping. I see that, I see too complicated. I think one of the reasons iTunes works is I don't have to think about it. Is this the common platform? Do people understand and like this?
So, I mean, when you use iTunes, isn't it also the case that you can only use your content from 3 PCs that you kind of, sign into your iTunes account? It's also restricted.
It probably is, but they don't put it out there in the same way.
Yeah, okay. I mean, maybe that's my fault because I'm not the ultraviolet marketing person.
Let's be fair here. We're looking at industry material rather than consumer material, so let's not mix those up. This is to make sure the industry understands what ultraviolet is defined.
Sure, and we're talking to an industry audience. But for consumers, what is your perspective? Have they warmed up to ultraviolet? Are the numbers I'm seeing that it's rosy and people are using it? Does that really reflect what's happening in homes?
So I'm going to say that it's struggling at the moment. I think that consumers are failing to understand what the proposition is. I think some of the more interesting stuff is what Walmart did in terms of allowing people to turn up with their DVD and Blu-ray collections and for a small sum convert those into ultraviolet titles. Though from what I've read in sort of blogs, that process hasn't necessarily worked smoothly.
Right, sometimes it's limited to different studios. You bring in your DVDs and they won't convert all of them.
But I think where the mistake that the industry of ultraviolet group is making against Apple is they're still tying it very much to the physical media model. So it's really about you having a Blu-ray disc and then getting additional access to that same title from other services. So unless you two disagree, the primary sale of Ultraviolet today is as an adjunct to Blu-ray discs to try and help sell Blu-ray discs rather than as a sort of standalone, vibrant service.
Remember to hold it a little closer to your mouth.
So, I mean,
Matthew, yeah, a little bit.
yeah, I would probably say that Ultraviolet will, be the next generation Blu-ray disc. I'm not. I wouldn't support that Ultraviolet is trying to help selling Blu-rays because in the future there won't be any logical drives anymore in PCs. You can't play Blu-rays anymore, and Ultraviolet kind of is the technology that comes after digital, after analog disc or tangible stuff.
I think one of the reasons I've always been skeptical about Ultraviolet is when it was introduced to me, it was explained that the 80s were very good for the Hollywood studios because everyone had a collection of VCR tapes, videotapes. They had their own libraries. They could never do that before. And then nowadays, people download whatever they want, when they want. They have Netflix. They're not into owning movies. It's a different mindset. And that Ultraviolet was an attempt to get people back into the idea of having a movie collection. It's in the cloud. You don't have to store it, but you have your collection. Is that still what it's about? Is it about getting people to own, so to speak, their movies?
So, I mean, I know the German market quite well, and German people tend to like to own stuff. So, yes, it's definitely attractive to have both business models, which is, the one is you own something and you have it in your collection and you can show your friends your collection and, invite for movie evenings and so forth. And the other model is I'm alone at home, I want to rent a movie, I just want to watch it now, so the 24 hours or 48 hours rental time is fine. So these are just two different pricing or business models if you want, and I think they both have their right to exist.
So on other electronic sell-through methods, I mean, have there been other online locker systems or other branded services that have been especially successful?
So you were mentioning the key chest one, which is the Apple Disney thing. I don't think that a locker system has been successful in the last kind of
So
10,
I think
10 years.
maybe it's not been successful because you don't have a good collection of rights, which Ultraviolet gives you. And today, up until today, there hasn't been a clear common platform, and that's what Ultraviolet's aiming to do. I think it's interesting that they start with streaming, and there's no real common streaming standard within Ultraviolet, and there are multiple DRMs, so there are many more than 5 DRMs, and I think that illustrates the challenge of creating a common platform where you are not able to regulate enough to achieve commonality. As Susanna says, running 5 DRMs is not a particularly easy thing to do, and you may have to take on a 6th or a 7th at short notice.
Yeah, DRM does sound like a very complicated issue. And then, Susanna, you told me before that even small retailers can use DRM effectively?
So I'm myself coming from a business where I worked for a big mobile operator, and I was running all their DRM technology for a lot of countries, and we had all this in-house multiple DRM systems. They need to be scalable. We had to look for all the licensing and IPR stuff and so forth. So it has been an own little department. So no small retailer can actually afford to do this. So today I'm working for Cast Labs, and Cast Labs actually has the idea to take that away from the small and mid-size, also big retailers, to offer DRM as a service where you actually only pay for the license that you actually send out to the customer. And we have a special offering for Ultraviolet where we offer all 5 approved DRMs, which you can just integrate into our APIs, and no matter what device comes along, we're going to send the device the right license. So we take away the burden of the 5 DRMs from every retailer that signs up for Ultraviolet, more or less, and make it affordable. Because I mean, if you look at, let's be open, yeah. If you look at the Apple iTunes ecosystem, they only have one DRM, they only have, you know, one service that sends out licenses, center force. If in ultraviolet we start now, you know, that everyone build their own DRM system, the technology cost is just too high, and this is not going to survive. So what we're trying to evangelize is that there are going to be a few people and a few companies, you know, that have a little bit competition, but then install the necessary technology in the market, but not try to overdo it. You know, we need to be very slim in implementing ultraviolet and bring that to market to make it affordable for the retailers, because the retailers don't get much extra for implementing ultraviolet. And if the retailers are not playing the game with us, this is going to be difficult to bring into the market. We need to keep everyone happy in the value chain, so that ultraviolet is a success.
Very good. Anyone, anything to add on CRM?
So, well, I think on the DRM side, I think the other thing that one should look at are the client devices. So if you go back to our friends Apple, that's a managed platform with its single DRM, and if they have a problem with the implementation of the DRM, they're able to correct that problem and download a fix to the platform, and as indeed, whether it's Microsoft on PCs or Apple on their devices, you will see regular downloads coming from the platform operator. I think one of the challenges for any electronic sell-through platform that is not based on a single managed platform is who is responsible for managing those devices, and who's, you know, so we can launch from the back end the content out to the Android world. If only there was an Android world. There are multiple Android worlds with multiple updates and multiple devices, some of which are implemented in a secure way and some are not. And so, for example, there are technologies that are required by some content owners like Trustzone or something like that, that's required in an Android device or will be required in an Android device, and they're not in other Android devices. And you know, this is the problem for a consumer with electronic sell-through. They can't just take their Blu-ray disc or their UV file and play it, because they have to find out whether the device both was qualified for that content and will be in a year's time. And I think that management of the platform is a key issue that has to be addressed if we're going to have a really strong electronic sell-through platform.
So Andrew, it feels like we have a lot of vertical markets right now, but what customers need is a horizontal market where they can work freely.
So I think the challenge will be, you know, we all know about secure vertical markets and managed platforms, and we know about horizontal markets, and they tend not to be managed platforms. And what we haven't yet found, I think, is the secure, unmanaged horizontal market. So perhaps we'll see electronic sell-through happen through a set of verticals who are cooperating, and they may well be cooperating underneath the ultraviolet umbrella, but there'll be a set of vertical platforms. One day that could include Apple, but you know, I think one has to regard some of the the IDTVs, like the Samsung smart TVs, as vertical platforms, because they are increasingly going to have to be a managed platform. And I think that's.
And when we're talking about this in Europe, we have different companies own territorial issues, right? Different regulatory environments. How does that complicate electronic sell-through?
I didn't get the question.
It's a complex question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
I said when we're talking about electronic sell-through in Europe, different countries have different regulations, right? That also complicate what's possible and what studios need to do, what device makers need to do.
Yeah, certainly in the French market there are rules and regulations about what content can be sold and the proportion of content that has to be locally generated. And I think Europe is not one country yet, and so the regulation is different across each of the territories. So I think certainly managing an electronic sell-through platform that spans different territories is a challenge when those territories are part of that platform. But we should remember that if you look at ultraviolet, then it's France, Germany, the UK, and I think Ireland next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But if you're in Eastern Europe, you're outside the scope, and you're not allowed to access that content. And actually, that for online video delivery, that is a real challenge as well. It's a slightly separate issue, but if you are in some countries there is only an illegal way to access content, and I think this will only become a bigger issue as electronic sell-through becomes part of our lives.
I could see consumers feeling a little trapped by this. Is it going to take government regulations put over a large group, like the whole continent, to force device makers and content makers to all play together? And
So I don't think regulation is going to help at all. It's all about consumer demand and consumers voting by buying content and working with those providers. I was going to actually just while I've got the mic, just go back to one of these DRM comments, which is how important good quality DRM is going to be for the industry to be successful. It doesn't. It's a nightmare scenario which may not be too far away, where large amounts of online content is being accessed by pirates directly from where it's being stored in the cloud, and that has not only is that lost revenue for the content owners and the retailers, because they're not selling that content, the pirates are, it's also actually going to cost those retailers to deliver, because if they're responsible for the delivery, they're actually going to be paying for the content to go to the pirated homes. So it's going to be very important for them that the DRMs around electronic sell-through stay secure, particularly as the content exists in the cloud as well as in the device itself.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, and I would like to say as well that, DRM technology, the customer doesn't like it. We all know that, and I'm not trying to, ignore this. But on the other hand, DRM facilitates the business models, as I said before, the differentiation between renting a movie, buying a movie. It also facilitates actually that you get some revenues from movies that are really expensive in the production. So if we don't have this secured revenue anymore, we don't know where actually the movie business goes to. So I guess that's a really important factor to see. And in ultraviolet, especially, you go through a certification of clients before you actually can use this client as a DRM approved client in that ecosystem. And what this also gives you, it ensures you that the client is actually rendering the quality that it should render, that all the user experience that ultraviolet or this ecosystem is staying or standing for, that this is actually ensured. You have good quality, good audio quality, subtitles and everything. And as a side effect, DRM is also a means to ensure that you have a certified client, which shows the right user experience.
I think this is where the old world of broadcast clashes with the new world of EST, maybe, and that's on security, because I think I would challenge the level of certification on devices today. If I look at OTT devices or devices that are proposed to be ultraviolet compliant, I think I would challenge whether they are really subject to a rigorous certification scheme and perhaps only, in fact, a self-certification scheme, and compare that to the level of security that is applied to a broadcast PVR, for example. And the testing and both the design rig and the testing that goes into it are quite different. I think at some point, when content becomes available, especially when it's protected by multiple DRMs, and everyone does have a means of accessing that content, it's going to be very attractive to start pirating those systems, and we're going to have to find different means of controlling that, because perhaps we can't apply the rigors of the broadcast world. Perhaps we will have to move to a more soft, secure solution where we are using the connected world to see what pirates are doing and to monitor what they're doing, and also we can use other techniques like social DRM, which is applied in the publishing media, so that people are made aware of the fact, people can see that someone copied content illegally, but you may not prevent it. But we're going to have to take, I think, a wider perspective on security. For the really premium content, though, DRM will have to lock it down. Otherwise, as Susanna says, there's no revenue stream.
I do want to leave a few minutes for questions, but before we do, I'd like to hear from all of you about maybe make a prediction about when we'll get to a point where we have some kind of common system, something that you could see for the future of when something that consumers will all understand and gravitate to will be available? Go out on a limb, say something crazy. Matthew?
So I'm going to say that really getting to a common platform is going to take a change in video format. So I think that the arrival of 4K will be an opportunity for us to really bring all the technology together and have true common platforms for this kind of thing.
Interesting. And when will we see that for home use?
I think 3 years, 3 years away.
Okay. Susanna?
So I think, I mean, we obviously already started with ultraviolet, and I think ultraviolet has a good chance to get there. It's getting more popular, and it's getting the real launch next year in the UK. And then it depends how customers like it, and it's difficult to predict, but if you buy your rights in the rights locker, you're not dependent on the format anymore, which I like personally, because today it might be not 4K, and in 3 years it is. And you buy a right, you put it into your rights locker, and in 3 years you can stream or download it in 4K format, which is great, and I think the customer will like that.
Okay. And
So I make a prediction that your rights for your HD copy won't apply to your 4K copy. I can make that prediction.
So I think that it will take some time. I was in the MPEG Dash session just now, and that's a good illustration of where you start with MPEG Dash and you discover that there are in fact many things to specify underneath that. And even if you move to HBBTV or ultraviolet, you find there are many things to specify. And just to come back to the regulation question, we all hate regulation, I'm sure, but there are some times when technical standards have been regulated successfully. And I think that the European Union regulating the DVB, through the DVB process, the common standard of the MPEG-2 transport stream, a common encryption standard, was actually a very successful piece of regulation for both for operators and for Europe, actually promoting that standard. But there was no regulation on the commercial use. And the interesting thing at the moment is that the standards are sometimes coming from systems components, the CE industry, and they're sometimes coming from commercial organizations like Ultraviolet, in a sense, as a commercial operator. But what we haven't really seen is the standards coming from the existing operators. No one really driving and saying, well, what was good about the old standards of the DVB, which is pretty out of date in this context, I agree, but we can learn from some of their successes and failures where they didn't regulate the commercial operation, but they did regulate some low-level requirements for interoperability, and by doing that, I think enabled something that was rolled out across the world very successfully.
interesting. I like that. Let's have a few questions from the audience for our panelists. Something challenging for them? Go ahead.
Yesterday we had about watermarking, so I'm sorry I understand nothing of this, but it's like transferring in watermarking as opposed to DRM would be more effective way of tracking the entire sort of value chain of the piece of content.
Well, yeah, I mean, watermarking, that probably works with the social DRM that you mentioned before. I'm not sure if the social DRM works with, this premium content that we're talking about.
But watermarking is, I think, an essential part of the future of secure systems, and whether you're watermarking to discover the point of consumption or the point of transmission is an interesting question, because today watermarking is not forced in client devices, but I think it will come, and it'll be through watermarking that we're able to monitor where content is leaking, and only when you can see that can you do something about it. But whether you stop the content leaking, which is the one use of watermarking, or whether you track what's happening to it, which is the more social DRM approach, that I think will depend on the value of the content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's possible. I would also say it's rather a combination than either or.
I mean, I was going to say, I totally agree that watermarking is a key part of a secure future, but we have to ask, do we want to make ordinary consumers into criminals, or do we want to make and focus on the pirates and making them and tracking them as criminals? And then it's which technologies are going to do that, and whether device-based watermarking is the answer there, or whether it's more source-based watermarking.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you can use watermarking in so many different ways. You know, it could you could put in information, and if it's the information of the individual or just the device it's delivered to, or just the day of purchase, it has so many different use cases that you can use it for, and I think we could discuss for another hour which would be the right thing.
I'm going to cut you off there, and then we have one more question here. Did you guys get that?
Good content.
Talking
Yeah,
about
I would probably say that you shouldn't, let YouTube stand there alone and compare it with ultraviolet. I think YouTube can become part of ultraviolet.
yeah.
Well, as far as I understand, then you have one retailer. You can go to YouTube and get your content there. But Ultraviolet kind of is a consortium that is retailer independent. So whenever you want to use a different retailer than YouTube, you want to go somewhere else, it's difficult for you to take your content with you or directly use it in the new environment, maybe with the new client or so. So basically, it gives you a broader access to your content. You can change the retailer. You can go to somewhere else and still have the same user experience, and have all your content in one locker, in one collection.
Okay, that's really all we have time for. Let's have a hand for our panelists. I think they did a great job.